All right. So now that we've done that portion and we have everybody in the room, you can watch the stream or you can look at the map board. I will be pinging like this when I talk about certain things. But just in case nobody watched the video before class tonight, we are going to go through how to play the game. Some of the rules we're going to skip just for time purposes, and they might not be applicable to this scenario. The way that we're going to set it up is first I'm going to give a brief demonstration of how the game goes, explain where to look at for information in terms of, how far can I fire this, things like that. And then I will split everybody up into two teams. You'll still stay in your observer roles. And because this is educational, we're not really going to care about the competitiveness of the game. We're really just going to focus on having the teams basically talk through their moves together and think about, how they would play the war game, making those moves. I will help guide you all through that. And then at the end, we will all have a little discussion about some of the core mechanics, why they work the way they work, what you guys thought about them, and just kind of some general feedback so you have an idea of what a professional military education oriented war game looks like, how it plays, and some of the design trade-offs that went into that. So before I start, is there anybody who cannot see the counters or any of these cards? Is there any of them that are face down for you? Okay. So I'm going to start with the very basics. We're going to go over basically the counters, the cards, what everything means. We're going to read some of the capability cards to explain some of the mechanics, and then I'll walk through basically doing a turn for blue and red, and then we'll get started on actually playing. So um, if you want to zoom in Vassal, if you're looking at the stream, um, we're going to start with basically the unit cards. So the way that Littoral Commander is played is it's played in what are called impulses, or you can think of them as phases. These three cards right here for red up top, this is considered one task force. So the mech platoon, the light tank platoon, and the air defense platoon, they will all be a task force, which means that when it's red's turn, they can either decide to play this task force or this task force. And in whichever task force they choose, those will be the units they'll move for that phase or attack or just general actions. Everything in the game, every time you do an impulse, you essentially have three core actions that you can do. If you want to play a capability card, which are what these cards are right here, indicated by the blue, green, sometimes they'll be purple, red. But these are going to be your capability cards. These cost one action point. So you have those three action points you can play per phase. And what these are supposed to do is, because it's a grand tactical game simulating combat at kind of the lowest levels. Apologies for that. Because it's kind of a grand tactical game simulating combat at the lowest levels, these joint capability cards are the way that the designer basically puts strategic level assets or other kinds of things like cyber attacks, non-kinetic effects. The cards are going to be how that gets simulated into the game. So they cost an action point to play. If you were to do anything with your actual units in the task force, you can basically do one of two things. You can move a unit and attack, or you can attack and then move, or you can conceal or move and conceal, any variation. Any variation of that costs an action point. All of the counters are going to be face up for tonight, just for ease of use with everybody in here being able to see everything. But the way the war game's actually played is normally they will be hidden, or they'll be flipped over like this. And in order to hit anything in the game, essentially you need to detect it. So this game's core mechanic is around revealing enemies, concealing yourself, trying to maintain that small signature footprint. Because once you're revealed, and you'll see once we do a turn here, once a target is revealed, pretty much everything on the map fires at it, and it's very hard to defend. The game tries to model salvo equations a little bit, not in any mathematical way, but just in essentially syncing up your fires from multiple different points and trying to defeat the enemy's interceptions. So to review, each time it's red or blue's turn, they have 3 action points. They can either move and attack with the unit, they can move and conceal, they can attack and move. Any of those cost 1 action point. You could play a joint capability card. Any of those cost an action point. But no matter how many of it you do, you can only do 3. So if I were to do something with the mech platoon and then something with the light tank platoon, I would then have to choose whether I wanted to do something with the air defense platoon or play one of my capability cards. Does that make sense to everybody? Just open up the chat. Okay. So going back to the unit card and kind of going over the how to read the information. So if you're in Vassal right now, go up to the top right here and click Play Aid. This is that reference document that's going to tell you basically what I just described. When you go down to core actions, it'll tell you those things you can do. But then in order to read the actual card, you'll have to go to the rulebook, but I'll just explain. So the gray octagon is your movement points essentially. So this mechanized infantry platoon 1 alpha has 2 movement points. And then going down the card, you see the big number 6 and then the little number 0, and it's green. Green in this game is ground combat assault. So any kind of ground combat that's going to occur, it's always going to be green that you're looking for. And what this represents is essentially you have to roll a 6 or less. So whatever the big number is, that's what you have to roll or less in order to hit the enemy. And the 0 or the smaller number is the range. So for instance, this mechanized infantry platoon, let's say there was an enemy in this hex. I wouldn't be able to attack from here into here. I would have to physically move 1 alpha into this hex because it has a 0 hex range. And then I would be able to attack. So ground combat simplified means you basically have to stack your unit on top of the enemy unit in order to, when it gets into combat, up here at the top, this green cube indicates your munitions or how many attacks you can do. So let's say I was attacking with this mechanized infantry platoon. If you are touching the cards, please do not. If I was attacking with this mechanized infantry platoon up top, then what I would do is basically look at the green cube to see how many attacks I could do. And I can do 3. So if I wanted to try to hit him 3 times, I would just basically expend the green cube all the way down the tracker. And then because I need 6 or less, what I would do then is everything's done through dice rolls. So D20. And for those of you who aren't familiar with what that means, it's basically a 20-sided dice. You go up to the top here in Vassal where it says D20, and this is going to be how you do your dice rolls in the game. So because I'm doing 3 attacks, I would roll 3 D20s, and I need a 6 or less to hit. And then in the top up here in this chat log, it's going to tell you what I rolled. So I rolled a 2, a 6, and a 13. So technically I got 2 hits on that unit. And so let's say that this was the unit, just as an example, that got hit because it was hit twice. This black cube denotes their health pool. And so it only has 2 hit points, so it got hit twice, so now that unit would be considered destroyed. And that is essentially how combat goes for ground. It's similar to how it goes for long range fires. So if I wanted to do the same thing with this MLRS, it's the same thing. So if I wanted to expend 3, then I have a range of 9, but I need a roll of 14 or less. Now, when long range fires happen, so let's just demonstrate that real quick. Let's say 3-1 Echo, this MLRS is trying to shoot 1 Alpha. Purple is your air defense. So 1-1 Delta is the air defense for blue. And if we go down here to the IMRIC section, we can see that there's 2 different types of munitions here. It can defend at 0 range, or it can defend up to 4 hexes. So we want to use this additional 4. And so what we would do for that is, because the unit is directly behind 1 Alpha to the north, it's closer than the firing unit to the target. So if your intercepting unit is closer to the target than the unit that's firing at it, you're able to intercept. For example, let's say 1-1 Delta was instead moved all the way up here and 3-1 Echo fired. I would not be able to intercept with 1-1 Delta because, first of all, it's out of range. So that's a bad example, but let's say it's here. I wouldn't be able to intercept even though it's within range because the firing unit is able to hit it before my missiles can even reach to intercept. And the dice roll is the same, so if I was to intercept with 3 against 3 missiles being shot, I would roll that d20 and hope to get 3 rolls with 13 or less. Now, where this comes into play and it gets a little chaotic is normally you will never have, it's not a good idea to basically only send as many intercepts as many targets are coming through, because if you miss the intercept, that missile is still going to go through if it hits. So let's say, just as an example, 3-1 Echo was able to fire 8 missiles at 1 Alpha, and I only used 3 to intercept with the IMRIC. Well, even if all 3 succeed and they intercept, I'm still going to have 5 hits on 1 Alpha that are just completely unaccounted for. So typically, units run out of ammunition very quick. Lots of missiles start firing. Lots of intercepts start firing. And it becomes a balancing act where you start taking risks as needed, or you play it safely, but you run out of ammunition faster than everybody else and you become a sitting duck. So there are some of those gameplay considerations to kind of think of as we go through this. But that is combat simplified in a nutshell. So let's say that all of these units were not revealed like they are now, and I wanted to try to reveal 1 Alpha. So I'll flip this over, and it'll have a black border, but if we were on teams, you wouldn't be able to see anything on the counter. You would just see a anchor. I would play a joint capability card probably to start with, and it would be this tactical cyber attack that I'm putting here in the middle. And so if you read what it does, it says roll 1 die on 1 through 12, meaning I roll a d20. If I get 1 through 12, all units in any 1 hex are revealed and cannot conduct actions for this turn. Turns are different than phases. Because we only have 2 task forces for red and blue, we're only going to have 4 phases, so each task force gets a phase. Once every task force has had a phase, that is a turn. So essentially what this means is if blue were to play this tactical cyber attack on 3-1 Echo, and it succeeded, 3-1 Echo wouldn't be able to fire for the entire turn. It wouldn't be able to move. It wouldn't be able to do anything. If I were to play this as red, and I wanted to play it on, let's say, an air defense unit, or where I suspected one might be, let's say I was successful, it also includes defensive intercepts. So you could really use this to mess up somebody's navy. You can use it to mess up their air defense. Rarely do you want to use this on like a ground combat unit or something that doesn't provide an additional capability with long-range fires. And then same thing with the greens. So these are separated into different categories. If you look at the top where it says card library and click on it, it'll actually give you these tabs to tell you what the colors mean. So red are always going to be your kinetic cards that you can play. Green are going to be maneuvers. So this is like logistics and deploying military deception units, things like that. Purple is going to be your interception type stuff. So there's there's ballistic missile defense. Um, Combat air patrols are in this scenario, but we're not going to use them just for the sake of time. Essentially, just to go over it though, the combat air patrol JCC is what's called a persistent JCC or capability card, and that's denoted by the infinity symbol. Usually joint capability cards with this infinity symbol are persistent because they're modeling some type of abstraction that would normally be there, but it doesn't fit within the confines of the war game. Because this is mainly looking at low signature uh, distributed combat, we're not really caring about the nitty gritty of how, a F-16 dogfighter, F-35 fights against a J-35. It's just not important for this game. So this is how the game basically abstracts air combat going on. And it can do multiple different things, including trying to attack ships. Some of them are able to intercept missiles. But for the purpose of tonight, we're not going to use it. But I just wanted to give everybody a brief overview of it because it is a design choice in here to model things like combat air patrols and things that would be persisting in the area of operations. It's just not useful for the purpose of this game. Are there any questions so far before I basically go through a move and then split us up into teams? Sure. Correct. Yeah, so they'll either already be established or there was a discussion a little bit before class started about the intent of the design of this, and I'll go over it at the end, but it's similar to basically an open-ended system where he designed it where if you wanted to say the combat air patrol, instead of it modeling a sortie or a few sorties, maybe it's modeling, an ATO. He made it modular so that the card didn't necessarily say that it's just a sortie. You can kind of create your own rule set and scenario to work around that. Sure. There's no double hit for ground. No. So good question. So let's say 3-1 Echo is firing at 1 Alpha. 1-1 Delta would be able to try to intercept even if it's not Blue's turn or Blue's impulse. So any kind of defensive intercepts can happen whenever your opponent targets you, essentially. You're not confined to only trying to intercept when it's your impulse. Correct. Correct. Yeah. It's it's supposed to be in hours. I don't want to tell you the wrong thing, so I'll double check, but I want to say it's supposed to be like 3 hours. Let me. Yeah. Give me 1 second. So they're not in the rule set. However, I could send you a copy of the rules I made for a scenario that includes not any logistic concerns, but some of that C2 headquarters signature stuff. So like each time you make a move with something, it is attached to a headquarters unit that I built into the scenario. So you could get an idea of maybe how you could incorporate a headquarters element into it. But correct. Yes. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. Are there any other questions about any of the mechanics or concerns you might have? All right. So I'm going to essentially go through a turn as blue, or sorry, a phase as blue, just to show you how it goes, and then we'll split up into teams, and then we'll start talking through each team's phase and make the moves and have you guys actually articulate what you want to do. So for the purposes of lists, let's just pretend that all of these units are hidden and none of them are revealed. So I'm going to choose to play the task force that has the DDG. So that's going to be the second one that's got the air defense, the DDG, and the logistics company. Because I have 3 action points for this task force, I'm going to use my first action point to play the Tactical Cyber Attack JCC. And I am going to target the hex right here, Romeo 24. So I'm going to roll 1 die, and I need a 1 through 12. And in the chat log, it shows I have a 12. Because I've used this card, it is now expended. And both of these units are revealed. If you want to basically stack or unstack things in one hex, you just double click on it and it does it automatically. So now we could see that 1 alpha and 1 kilo are both revealed. That is 1 action point for me. So now I am going to reveal my DDG because I want it to attack. And I'm going to attempt to strike 1 kilo. So I go down to my unit tracker on the bottom and I look at the Arleigh Burke class DDG. I see that it has an infinite range, but I need a 14 or less to hit. I can see that I have 10 missiles to fire, so I'm going to expend 6 of them. Now, the red team would definitely defend against this. The only unit that can defend against it is 1 kilo, the unit that's being targeted, except that I played the Tactical Cyber Attack JCC. So none of these units inside this hex can actually do anything. If the DDG was closer, let's say red's DDG on the west was actually here on the east, then I could intercept. So for the purpose of this example, we're just going to pretend that it is here so I can intercept and show that. So I'm going to use red's DDG. So going up to the top and looking at their unit tracker, they have an intercept range of 10 and they need a 14 or less. So I've already stated I'm going to use 6 missiles to attack as blue. I can see that I only have 9 for intercepts as red. So I'm going to use 8, which leaves me with 1. So first what I'm going to do is roll for intercepts. Let me double check that actually. Sorry, no, first you roll for attack to see what's successful and then you roll intercepts. But you have to declare the intercepts first That way you can't game the system and wait to see how many attacks were successful. So both players declare what they're using to attack and intercept first, and then you make the rolls. So going down and looking at blue's DDG, I need a 14 or less, and I'm using 6, so I'm going to type 6. And 5 were successful. So going back up to red, I'm going to now roll 8 for intercepts, and I need a 14 or less. And I got 6. So I basically intercepted all of them and then fired off an extra one that didn't have anything to intercept. So no hits were applied to 1 kilo. Now as blue, I have one more action point left. And I don't think I'm going to do anything, actually. I think I'm going to end the turn. Because I can't do anything with the air defense, and there's nothing for the logistics. Actually, there is. So I'm going to use the last. This was the other core action. I didn't go over logistics and how it works, so I'll just do it now. So for logistics, it works a little bit different than munitions or any kinetics. You don't actually have to roll to see if you're successful. You just have to be within range. And so essentially what this is the bigger number denotes the range. Sorry, the bigger number denotes how many equipment you can give to a unit, and the smaller number denotes the range. So essentially what this is saying for the logistics company on blue is that let's say I had a unit that was severely depleted. It's basically telling me that if I'm not within, close 3 hex range, let's say this logistic company was all the way out here because it was trying not to get targeted by something. Because it's within 6 hexes but not 3, I can only resupply 2 equipment. But going back to where it's at originally, if I wanted to resupply because it's within those 3 hexes, I can actually go all the way up to 6 equipment. So there's a little bit of trade-off between keeping your logistics far enough away to where they might not be within range of the enemy, but close enough to be able to resupply. And when you resupply units, you do not reveal the location of the logistics unit. And that would be the end of the phase. So now it would be red's turn, and then red would be able to choose which task force they wanted to activate for this phase. And you would either choose, the top task force or the bottom one. And it goes the same way. You basically move, attack, if you've attacked previously. So let's say now that this DDG on blue is revealed, for instance, it stays revealed until the next turn, and it can choose to either move and conceal, or it can stay revealed and keep attacking, essentially. So keep in mind, whatever you do attack with, it does get revealed until the next turn. So that's why you might use a core action to conceal a unit when it becomes the next turn and it can move again. Are there any questions? What'd you say at the beginning? I didn't catch that, sorry. Correct, it happens automatically. Yeah, so that's another good point because I glossed over it. So for ground combat, there is a zone of reconnaissance. So for those of you who might not be familiar with wargaming terms, zone of reconnaissance is usually a term used to denote, for instance, let's say 1 alpha for red was here in the middle. It's an abstraction of the organic reconnaissance this unit would normally do in combat, but because there's no game mechanic for it, the zone of reconnaissance is just a term to say, okay, in this war game, it's any hex that's near a ground unit, and it's 1 hex. So any 1 hex that's near a ground unit automatically gets revealed as part of its zone of reconnaissance. So that might be a reason why you would move a ground unit to abstract that reconnaissance, reveal enemy positions. Um, that in turn does reveal yourself as a ground unit because you will be in Blue's zone of reconnaissance, for instance. So that would be a way to reveal the enemy without playing a joint capability card and without them attacking. And it's really put there to prevent a situation from arising where neither side wants to attack and reveal because they have limited munitions, and it becomes a stalemate at that point. They do. Um, it's within 3 hexes, though. So if I was here, we'd see each other here, here. But if I were here, we would not. Yes, sir. Okay, so I'll split everybody up into teams. Actually, before I do that, let me go over what some of the cards are that are attached to these units. So if you look down in the bottom at blue, this unmanned ground vehicle card. So it's a joint capability card that gets attached to a unit. It's already attached because in the scenario notes, that's how the designer wants it. But it does exactly what it reads. Increase host units HP by 2. So we would move the black cube on it up by 2, even though the box is in 2, because we have this card attached. And then permanently increase the ground's assault value by 5. What that means is if 1 alpha was to go into ground combat, instead of that 6 or less needed, you would have an 11 or less needed to hit. And then same kind of concept for this VBAT on the bottom attached to the HIMARS. This is actually trying to model drones and getting that ISR. So requires a ground unit, place the ISR marker on the host unit, which is what this marker here is in the middle for both sides. This revealed 1. 1 is just ISR marker 1, essentially. This does not take an action point to move. So if it's 3-1 Echo's task force and it's their turn to make core actions, they can move this ISR drone without costing an action point, but it can only move up to 3 hexes away from the host unit, which is 3-1 Echo. So on Red's turn, if they wanted to, they could move the ISR drone 3 hexes north and reveal Blue. Sorry, it has a radius limit of 10 hexes from the host unit, but it can only move 3 hexes per turn. But essentially, it just reveals any unit it flies over, so it's kind of like a freebie for your whatever unit you have it attached to kind of go do some reconnaissance so you can get some fires on target. And both red and blue have those for this scenario. So splitting us up into teams, because I know some people were up late. We only have like 15 minutes left. Everybody stay in the observer role, but we're essentially just going to talk through it and kind of do a cooperative session here. No, it doesn't cost a point to activate the attached cards. At the end of this, when we do the discussion, I'll go over some of the JCCs and how they get selected, but essentially at the beginning of most scenarios, each team has an allotted number of points. The number in the top of these JCCs where you see 3, 2, 1, that's how much those cost. So there is an aspect of this, if you do enjoy this game and you want to look into it, there's an aspect of deck building where each team basically crafts their own capabilities that they want to use for the scenario, and it's up to you what you attach those to and how you use it. But there's no point cost for activating the ISR. But everybody stay an observer, so for the purpose of this, we're going to go Ben, Adam, Alan, Arturo, Ashley. You all are going to be blue. Cameron, Dawson, Gianmarco, Leela, or Layla, sorry if I butchered that, and Samuel, you all are going to be red. And for the purpose of this, let's say Ben, Adam, and Alan, you are going to be this first blue task force, so the ACV section, infantry platoon, and HIMARS section. And then Arturo and Ashley, you are going to have the Arleigh Burke air defense and the logistics section. Cameron, Dawson, and Gianmarco, you guys are going to have Red Task Force 1, so you're going to have the Mech Infantry Platoon, Light Tank Platoon, and Air Defense section. And then Layla and Samuel, you're going to have the MLRS Logistics Platoon and Type 55 DDG section. So we will start off with, I'll keep track of what's revealed and what's not revealed for the purpose of this. So we're going to pretend that everything is hidden right now, even though you all can see it. So Task Force 1 for blue, you have 3 action points. How do you want to go about doing this? And this is kind of like an open discussion forum, so ask questions if you need clarification, talk amongst yourselves, but do you want to move something? Do you want to play a JCC? Do you want to move your ISR? How do you guys want to do this? Okay. So you can pick between the 1 Alpha here, 1 Bravo here, or the HIMARS section 1 Charlie. So you have, they all have 3, so the white number and the gray box is their movement points. So the green costs 1 movement point. If you look at the bottom of the map, there's a little color chart. So green's 1 movement point, yellow's 2, orange is 3. So if you were to move 1 Alpha to the left here, that would cost 2 movement points, and you'd have 1 left. So keep in mind that, go ahead. With 1 Alpha. So you can do that, or remember there's a zone of reconnaissance for anything it moves up against. Would you like to move here instead and reveal these units? Okay. So these units are revealed. Something interesting to note about 1 Alpha is it does have a red box, right? Which means it does have some long-range strike capabilities. So because you moved here, you can actually strike any of these units you've revealed with your long-range strike. You only have 1 of those. So would you like to attack, or would you like to just stay where you're at? I would probably go for the long-range fires. So would you like to attack 3-1 Echo? Okay. So you need a 6 or less to hit. Because 1-1 Kilo can only defend with a range of 0, it can't actually intercept. And because the DDG is too far away, it won't be able to as well. So this is a freebie. You just need 6 or less to hit. So why don't you go up to the top where it says D20, click on that, and in number of dice, just put 1 and roll it, and we'll see what you get. All right. So at the bottom, take the red cube on 1 alpha and just put it anywhere on the card that's not in one of those boxes, so you can track your munitions. There you go. Yep, that's perfect. And then up at the top, whoever's in charge of the MLRS for red, if you will move the black cube to the left 1, and that denotes that you've taken 1 damage. So you have 1 hit point left on 3-1 Echo, and that is 1 action point for the task force. So let's let Ben or Alan do the next core action. And you guys can either use 1-1 Bravo, 1-1 Charlie, the ISR that's with 1-1 Charlie, or you can play one of these joint capability cards. And if you don't have a mic or you don't feel comfortable talking, if you just want to type in the Discord chat, I have it open so I can read. Okay. Would you like to move the ISR for 1-1 Charlie, or do you want to use it to strike one of these units that were revealed? Okay. You can strike 3-1 Echo. You could try to strike their air defense or 1 alpha, but if you try to strike the air defense or 1 alpha, the air defense will be able to try to intercept. So it's up to you. Okay. And then if you look at 1-1 Charlie's card at the bottom, you'll see that it has 6 munitions for the short range. Sorry. So this is something else I probably should have went over. Let me pull this card in the middle here. So if you have 2 red munitions on something like the HIMARS and different color cubes like this orange and the red, the orange is always going to be whatever munition is most likely to hit. So it'll be the bigger number, the 12. So you'll have 3 that have a more likely chance to hit with 12 or less, or you have 6 that have a chance with 10 or less. So do you want to try the 6 or the 3? And then how many? Okay. And would you like to try to use all 3? Okay. So 1-1 Charlie is using 3 of the higher roll munitions. So I will take that off the cube. And because the air defense is able to intercept, red air defense, you have 4 intercepts you can use. How many would you like to use? Keep in mind you need a 7 or less to intercept. And the red air defense will be Task Force 1 for red. Yeah, so if you look at the card tracker up top, the purple cube is your intercepts. So you have 4 intercepts for your air defense platoon. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's your assigned task force, but I didn't give anybody specific units. If nobody else wants to take it, you're free to tell me. Okay. So I'll let you do it just for purposes of this. So take the purple cube and just put it off the card somewhere since you've expended it. And then we will go with Alan's rolls first. So Alan shot 3. So if you'll go up to the top, Alan, where it says D20 and just type in 3 and hit enter. And you need a 12 or less to hit. Okay, so you had 1 that got through, and then we'll go with the intercepts. So Dawson, do the same thing. Go to your D20 and then type 4. Okay, so you got 1. So no hits were taken. Air defense is out of munitions, and the HIMARS still has its less good munition left. So that is the end of the second core action. And then the only thing that's left is 1-1 Bravo for blue, or they can play a joint capability card. So, Ben, did you have anything you wanted to do? Okay. Like here? Okay. And then did you want to try to strike something or just keep it there concealed? Well, it's not concealed because it's in the zone of reconnaissance. Sorry. Okay. So because 1-1 Kilo used its intercepts previously, nothing can try to intercept this. So if you will go up to the top where it says D20 and just type in 1, roll it, and 1-1 Bravo needs a 8 or less to hit. All right, so it missed. And then on the card tracker down below, if you'll find the ACV section and just move that red cube to the left one, and that's it. There you go. And that is a phase for blue. And so now it is red's turn. So the mech infantry platoon, light tank platoon, air defense platoon. So we'll start with, I think somebody left. We'll start with Cameron. Cameron, you're on red, right? I put you on red. Okay, yeah, we'll start with you. So which unit would you like to activate, or which capability card? No, you're fine. If it's easier to just look at the counters and tell me, I can look at the cards for you. But you have 1 Alpha, 1 Delta, and 1-1 Kilo. They do for this scenario. This is the tutorial scenario. Yeah, so you essentially have these units and this unit. No, you're fine. Okay. All right. So because it's ground combat, it works kind of in similar fashion as fires and intercepts. Both sides are able to attack each other at the same time. So we will have 1 Alpha. They need a 6 or less. If you look at your card tracker, and I will bring it down a little bit for you. So they also have that UGV card. So their health needs to get bumped up by 2, sorry. So you actually have 4 hit points for 1 Alpha. And it increases the assault value by 6. So 6 plus 6 is 12. So you have 3 attacks you can do, and you need a 12 or less to hit. So how many attacks would you like to do? Okay. And then for 1-1 Bravo, they don't have the UGV card. So they need an 8 or less to hit, and they are able to attack back 3 times. So 1-1 Bravo, Blue Task Force, Ben, Adam, Allen, which, how many attacks would you like to do back? You need an 8 or less to hit. Okay, so 2 attacks. So I'll bump the cube to the left a bit. And then it doesn't matter in what order they get rolled in because it's the same no matter what. So red, Cameron, if you'll go up to the top, hit D20, and then hit 2, and then same thing for Ben. And then we'll look at the chat log. Okay, so you got 1 hit, Cameron, and Ben got 1 hit. So you both took 1 point of damage. So if you'll go to your card tracker and move the black cube to the left one. There you go. Oh. All right. So the ACV section is still alive. It has, 1-1 Bravo still has 1 health point left. And Red's 1 Alpha has 3 left. And so now that is 1 core action point. So now Dawson, would you like to choose the next move? And you can do 1 Delta, 1 Kilo, or you can play one of those joint capability cards. Okay. So you need a 1 through 14. You target 1 hex, and if you get a 1 through 14, anything in that hex gets revealed, and it cannot conduct any actions for the rest of the turn. And that can be any hex on the map. Yeah. All right, so you're successful. So we'll take... Correct. Now for the... Correct. And then... Gianmarco, did I put you on Task Force 1 or 2? I can't remember. Okay. All right, then that was the second core action. So Dawson or Cameron, you have 1 more move left. You can move 1 Delta or 1 Kilo. You're good. So let's say, yeah, it's just not in your task force. So blue did a task force, you're doing this one, and then we'll go back to blue to do their second, and then we'll come back to red to do your second. Sorry, I was looking, yeah. 1 Kilo and 1 Delta. You're fine. They have 2 movement points. No, it's a light tank platoon. So it's a ground combat. The green is always going to be your ground combat units. 0, so they would have to move on to 1 Alpha or 1 Bravo. Okay. And then you have 3 attacks that you can do. and you need a 9 or less. So would you like to use all three? Okay, correct. And then you'll roll the d20 at the top. Yeah, that's how it goes sometimes. So, missed everything, and that is the end of Red's impulse. So now we go back to blue. So now we're at 1-1 Delta, the DDG, or the logistics company. So Arturo, what would you like to do? Okay, okay. So you need a 1 through 12. So go up to the top and hit D20. Oof. That's just how it is sometimes. So you weren't successful. There are no negative drawbacks to not succeeding other than just not getting the result you wanted. So that's the first action point. What's your next move? Yeah, okay. For the strikes, yes. Okay, okay. So let me just look at this. 1, 2, 3, 4. So red's DDG can intercept because you're both basically in 4 hexes away range. Okay. And then, all right, yeah, sure. I'll upload this later. So sorry, it kind of went on longer. Yes, sir. And then for red, would you like to intercept with your last intercept on that DDG? Yeah. Yeah, when blue did their first. Actually, no. Sorry, that was from previous when I was doing the demonstration. You're right. Yeah, sorry about that. So you have 9 intercepts you can use. Yes. All right. So we'll mark your purple cube down 5. Then we'll go with the strikes first. So Arturo, roll your d20. Yes. And you need a 14 or less. So you got 1. And then we'll do 5 intercepts. So 5 d20. Overkill. Okay. So you got 4 hits. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah. So that is the end of blue's second phase. So now it's back to red. So this is going to be Gianmarco. What would you like to do? Okay. So so you would have to move it 1 hex and then it would be within range. Okay. You played the JCC. Actually, I'm sorry. There's 3 actions. Sorry. Yeah, sorry. Your other actions that you could have done was resupply or the air defense. Sorry, I got ahead of myself there. Uh, 1-1 Bravo, if you look at the unit tracker, they only have 1 ground assault left. You can if you want to give them 2 resupply, but if you want to resupply them full, you just need to move 1 hex. Yep. You can. So you can't resupply unit past where it's green boxes, or the green where it's supposed to be. So 5 for 1-1 Bravo. Yeah. Okay. And then on your... No, the smaller number is what you'll need. So it's either 2 equipment at 6 hexes or 6 within 3. Yeah. All right. Sorry about that. And then I will... I moved Gianmarco's logistics. Did you want to do the same thing for 1 Delta or 1 Alpha? Okay. Which one did you want to pick? Okay. So I'll move the blue cube on 1 Lima 2 spaces because you gave 2 equipment, and 1 Delta had no ammunition. So we're going to give them the green cube back, and now they have 2. Okay. And then Layla, did you want to activate or do the second core action? Yeah. Yeah, so you can either use the 3-1 Echo, which is your long range fires, or you can use the DDG, which is kind of the same concept. Infinite. Yep. And what you can strike, because everything else is hidden still, is either the blue DDG or one of these blue units. Okay. And go ahead. It's up to you. You have 16 though, and this is probably going to be the last impulse before we go into a discussion. Okay. Yes, ma'am. And then for the intercepts, if we can, let's just do the math here. So red can intercept, sorry, blue can intercept. And blue has 10 intercepts. So blue, how many intercepts do you want to use? 3. Okay. So roll your D20 Arturo, roll 4. Layla got 3 successes, and you got 4 successes. So no damage to anything. And then Samuel, would you like to use the last core action? Yep. So because it's still within this zone of reconnaissance of blue, you can't conceal it. But let's say if you were to move it back off the line, you could conceal it then. Okay. And so the HIMARS has not been revealed yet. It's just these 2 blue units, or blue units, and this DDG. Okay. And how many do you want to use? You have 3 that you can use. It's going to be that one. Sorry, it's this one. All right. And blue cannot intercept, so just roll your 3 d20s. All right, and you got 1 hit on the ACV section, which actually kills it. So technically red won this scenario if we're going by the rules. And so that's basically Littoral Commander in a nutshell. There's some other aspects to it that go a little bit more in depth. Like we didn't use any of the tactical network stuff up top or the combat air patrols. But if you look up top at the card trackers in the top left for the tactical networks and read them, just to give you some situational awareness about how this may have played differently, this is supposed to abstract some of the cyber and non-kinetic effects that happen in the battle space. So if you think back to those tactical cyber attack JCCs that were played, one was successful. And so let's say that both of them were successful, and both blue and red succeeded. Well, each time one of these blue JCCs get played and they succeed, it's considered some type of cyber attack, essentially, even if it doesn't say it's a cyber attack. And so what will happen is for each successful attack you do, let's say I'm blue and I do a successful cyber attack against red. Well, if you look at red's tactical network card that has the blue cube on it, basically for each cube that is on that card, that side will start getting detrimental effects to their rolls. So we didn't really have any modifiers to the rolls except for those ground combat units that got a +6. But if we were playing with that tactical network card into play, you would have seen instead of a 6 to hit or a 14 to hit, that could drop down by 2 or 3 or 4, and now you start getting an 8 to hit or a 10 to hit instead of those higher values. And you can spend an action point to get rid of these cubes. And it's just a way that the designer tried to abstract that kind of stuff that still goes on, keeping it relevant to the combat system where it still affects the player and you still care about it, but you don't need like, a technical degree to be able to understand what's going on in the cyber domain. So it tries to keep it. There's an acronym that gets used a lot in the Army. It's called KISS. It means keep it simple, stupid. And that's kind of what I like about this game is it tries to do a lot of very complex things in a simple and easy way to understand for people. So before I go into some of the discussion questions, I want to point out some things about this game and just see if anybody kind of thought about it or realized it. So if you go back to the munitions being used to strike and the intercepts, there wasn't a lot of casualties in this game. And I think that's because we're used to being conservative and when we war game, we're used to like conserving our ammo and not necessarily thinking about this being a in the moment tactical decision where bullets are flying and you've got to make a decision now and neutralize the threat. That this game normally plays way differently where, you know, let's say without this ground combat, these DDG striking, if for instance Red's DDG had used 14 missiles to strike instead of 3 at the end. Not that 3 was a bad decision, but just thinking about how you're making these decisions a little bit. You know, Blue didn't have enough intercepts left to really counter that. They could if they really wanted to, but none of what they had within range would have been able to really hold against that. So, for instance, if you used 14 strikes as Red against an enemy air defense or an enemy DDG or something that has those long range fires, um, you're really just going to overwhelm them. They won't be able to defend, and your missiles will get through. Even if they get 6 successful intercepts, you shot 14. That's 8 points of damage. That's another reason why when you look at these card trackers, none of these units really have a lot of hit points. And it's trying to model, you know, combat gets chaotic, fast, and lethal. And so it's. Did anybody notice that as you were playing it, really? That or at least think about, man, I wish I shot more than I did, or I expected to intercept more than I did, or anything like that.